Are you frustrated every day? You're the business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're several years into it, and you're still frustrated because you feel like you're stuck in the weeds every day and you can't work on your business as opposed to in it. In this episode, I'm going to show you how you go from being that doer to a leader. Hello and welcome back to the Nebraska Entrepreneur, the podcast for Nebraska entrepreneurs who seek candid guidance from Midwest leadership. I'm Steve Kanne, and I've been a successful entrepreneur in Nebraska for over 20 years, helping and mentoring entrepreneurs and business leaders across the country. In today's episode, we're going to provide a roadmap on going from a doer to a leader. Joining us now is Jamie Bumgardner, my business partner, the CEO and president of Prime Secured. Jamie, I get asked frequently about leadership, and one of the things that people ask, especially those that were trying to lead and teach how to become leaders, they ask me, they say, how do you do it? How do you go from being a doer to a leader? And I always, when I get asked that question, I always think about two things. The first is controlling your emotions, so being mindful of your emotions, and the second thing is practice. Leadership isn't just, I think maybe for some people it might come naturally. For me though, it took a lot of practice.
Yeah.
A lot of mindfulness. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that's how we all begin as a doer. Even when we started our first company together, the way we ran the business was by doing. The way we modeled leadership was by doing, showing people how to do things. But and I think we probably both experienced it. As you get down the road and you begin to grow, you realize pretty quickly you become the limit to the company. It cannot go further with you doing. So then therein lies the question is, how do I become a leader and not a doer? And I think it, at least in my experience, has been a long journey of learning that, trying to stay out of the weeds and become a leader. But I think the key for me was when I realized that to become a leader, you've got to make the other person across the table more important than yourself, and you've got to pour into and invest in those people along the way. And that's really the first and probably the hardest thing to do. But I think once you get that perspective and you really care about the people around you, then it's just about developing trust and continuing to pour into them so they can grow. But I think that's was part of the key, at least transition for me to get out of the weeds from doing and actually start leading people.
Yeah, it was tough for me when we started the business initially in 2001. I had never led anybody.
Right.
I had not. I was a salesperson, and I didn't realize how much I didn't know about leadership. And so now I look back and I'm like, it took a long time for me to develop my leadership skills, and I'm still developing them today. But I know there's a few things that are critically important to having a company where you can develop good leaders. And I believe, and I want to get your thoughts, but I believe it starts with that foundation. Mm-hmm. We talk about mission, vision, core values, which ultimately builds that culture. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably started their company the same way we did. We had an idea, we're good at something, let's just go do it. And I think I was just explaining to somebody last week that when you initially start a business, it's less about mission, vision, core values, and it's more about survival. What do I have to do to get through today? What do I have to do to make payroll? Et cetera, et cetera. So you a lot of times, or often I should say, I think companies get started just like ours. We just dive in and start plowing forward. You just got to be a pit bull. But if I could hit the reset button and go back to the beginning, I wouldn't do any of that until I had strong mission, vision, core values. Because that's what guides the company. That's what leads the company. That's how we make decisions. That's how we hire people. That's how we fire people. And if you don't have that guiding light, that beacon, that compass, you'll have a tendency to make a lot of bad decisions. And I think we both experienced that over the past 20 years. But you don't know what you don't know. And so I think if I was mentoring somebody or giving them counsel, or like I said, if I could go back 20 years, I would definitely start with mission before I even open the door It's just critical to where the company's going.
Yeah, we've always talked, I know you and I talk a lot about culture has to come from the top down, right? So it starts with us, and we want our people to adopt that. And I've always also believed kind of like, leadership starts with me, but people have to see me in action, right? So they know what my expectations are. Is that how you approach leadership early on? Like, I have to do this so people can see how it's done?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think early on, again, it is tough because it's about survival. So you don't think about the criticality of culture. You don't think about your leadership styles, and but what you find over time is, and I think I've said this before. I think I've heard this before. Not my language. I stole it from somebody, but culture eats strategy, and I still believe it because if you have a good culture, a healthy culture, it's that culture that's going to create the strategy, not the other way around. So. But early on, as you know, it's just tough to see because you're in the weeds. You're doing. But I think, and I don't know that we define culture inside of Prime as actions and attitudes. So it's not about free snacks or vacations or trips or whatever. It literally is about the actions and attitudes of every team member that shows up. And I see people who really treat it as something that they can create by doing things, and I just don't believe it. I was talking to a guy a couple weeks ago. We were having coffee, and I asked him how work was going, and he said, "Okay, we've got these new culture initiatives, so we're giving people more time off, and we're putting snacks and breaks for them." And he goes, "Man, but these guys, we're just underperforming our metrics, but everybody thinks it's a great culture." And I just thought to myself that. You can't have a good culture without results. You cannot have a good culture without performance and people hitting their metrics, because if you're not doing those things, there is no trust. And if there is no trust, there is no culture. So the culture is about a lot more things than what we often think they are. So, but it's absolutely critical to the health of the company and leading people into the future.
Yeah, I know our leaders, especially our core group of leaders in the company. I mean, purpose is a big thing for them. And I think, you and I, it's kind of natural. We have our purpose, right? But for our team members to grow them as leaders and get them out of doing and thinking like an owner, they need to understand what their purpose is, right? They need to understand accountability. They need to understand their metrics, their KRAs, KPIs, that sort of thing. And we spend a lot of time on that. And, can you give me some perspective around that? What you see, how you see that as being important?
Yeah, I think we talk about A, B, and C players all the time. We want A players. It's not realistic to have all A players. B players, we want to coach up or coach out, and C players will make A players leave. And so if you start there, I think what you'll find is solid B players and A players want accountability. They want results. And so as we put KRAs, KPIs in place, metrics for each team member, and accountability around it, I think what you'll find is the talent will float to the top, because I do believe that those B players and A players, they want accountability, they want to get results, but they need led on how to get there. And that's where the KRAs, KPIs come in. People need to know what their role is, how they contribute to the organization, within their capacity. And it's amazing how many organizations I go into and you just walk around and ask people what they do, and they can't really tell you. They don't know why they know why they're there, obviously, for their work, but if you ask them how they contribute to the company, they really struggle. So I think KRAs, KPIs, and accountability around them are part of that culture discussion, and critical for leading people. I recently had a discussion with a team member, and I remember asking why this certain metric was down, and he goes, "Well, I didn't realize that I needed to be managing that." And that's just red flags right off my head. It's like, man, I missed that. So just that communication of expectations really goes a long way, just not getting results for the organization, but but it really shows that you care about that team member and want them to excel. So it's a critical part of leadership, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is that transition from being a doer to a leader, understanding those things. I know I didn't have, even early on, I don't think I even had self-accountability. I just did what I thought I needed to do every day. And so when people ask now, I'm like, well, that's a big part of it, is understanding your role, your purpose, understanding how you communicate your emotions. What else do you think is critical that would help somebody who's looking to be a leader and looking to grow, but today they're just in a role, right? They have a specific, they're a role player, but they want to grow. And so many people say they want to grow. What do you think is really critical, and where would they start with all of this?
Well, I think, we already talked about mission, vision, core values a little bit. We talked about accountability, carries, KPIs, which are all important. But I think one thing I often see business owners overlook is process. And I think process is one step in how to get out of the doing. And I hear this all the time. I don't know how to teach what I do. And I've said it many times. I just say, I don't know, I just do it. And I read a quote, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was from, but he said, if you cannot document what you're doing in a process, you do not truly know what you're doing. And that really resonated with me. So I think a big part of getting out of doing and getting to leadership is leveraging process in an effort to delegate to people. And I think that's one thing people overlook and undervalue. Not only does it allow you to grow and delegate successfully, but it allows your company to grow if everybody adopts that mindset. So it's I think, an overlooked function of leadership. I used to lead like this. I'm sure a lot of people do, but you think, well, if they just do what I do, and that's not fair to the team member to say that or think that. So I think a major step to consider in whatever you do in a company is coming up with a way to develop process so you can get what's out of your brain onto paper and use it as a method of teaching. So I just think it's an area that's critically overlooked in business today.
Yeah. I tell people, and you've probably heard me say this, is you got to be curious, right? You got to care and then be curious. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a leader, especially in our organization, I'm sure it's in any, but you got to be curious and you got to care. So such things as process, right? Ask the question. Number one, why are we doing this, or why am I doing this role? What's the reason for it?
Yeah.
And because I want to get better, so I really care about the organization, and I don't want to make sure we're wasting time, resources. But I'm going to be curious and ask a lot of questions. That's something that I talk about with the teams and the people that lead that are leaders in our company. So
totally agree. Yeah, I mean, curiosity is a powerful thing, and we're humans. And so, the English language specifically is a very complex thing. So, I mean, I don't know how many conversations we've had where you would say something and I just misinterpret it, thinking I know exactly what you're saying. And that miscommunication, as little as it may be, again, erodes trust. And trust is the foundation for everything inside a business. So, I think we practice that the best we can. Gaining perspective is, I think, what we call it a lot, but really it is curiosity and why would this person say, what do they actually mean? What's their intent? What are their emotions? How do they feel? But yeah, without gaining perspective and really approaching every conversation with curiosity, I think you're setting yourself up eventually for disaster because it as you know, it's so hard to communicate and make sure I understand exactly what you're saying. So yeah, it's a good point.
I see a lot of people flame out that way, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not curious.
Exactly.
They form an opinion or a belief due to their belief system, and then that's what they operate off of. They never seek to understand. They never ask questions. They don't lean into people and to really truly understand why they say the things they do or why they do the things they do. I read a lot like you, and so many times it's glaring. It's like that person's stuck on something and they're failing to ask the question. They're not curious. So yeah,
we've seen firsthand, you and I a couple of weeks ago down in Nashville, based on personality style, how people receive things. It's just not about me communicating into yours or mine, but we saw one instance where, if you recall, I said I was communicating 3 bullets to somebody, and just due to their personality style and how they process, they only heard one option. So we sat there and battled about the one option for 30 minutes. And then finally, Chris, our coach, stepped in and said, "Did you even hear what he said?" And the guy acknowledged that he didn't hear it. He heard one thing. But that's why we got to gain perspective, because if the person receiving it only hears one thing, I get frustrated because they're not listening, and gaining perspective and curiosity can solve all that. So,
yeah. One of the things that took me a long time to really understand too around that is vulnerability. I mean, to be curious sometimes, put yourself out there, ask questions. You have to be vulnerable. If you ask questions, you might not get the answer you want to hear. So how do you deal with that? How do you coach people around vulnerability? What do you tell people?
Well, that's tough. I mean,
it's hard to explain.
Yeah, some people are open books, and they'll just confess it. They'll open up about anything. Other people, probably a protection mechanism or something along those lines, just throw walls up and don't want to go there. But the one thing I have learned about vulnerability from actually a very close friend of mine was, in my opinion, it usually has to come from the leader, and the leader has to start the vulnerability. And I would say 8 out of 10 times, as soon as you open up as a leader and share something very vulnerable, that grants permission to everybody to do the same. And of course, you always have exceptions to that. But if you, in your business, can get to a point of vulnerability, you're going to build trust quickly, and that's going to speed things up. But I don't think it's so much teaching people vulnerability as it is displaying it and practicing it yourself. And I think that's when the guards will come down, people will feel safe, and they'll start to share more. And that's when you get, it's just like a force multiplier, because then people start sharing things they've been holding back. They've been fearful of sharing because of what you might think or somebody else might think. But if you can display that as a leader, that might be one of the biggest secrets in business. Not business, but maybe leading people is vulnerability that, again, often gets overlooked in business. So
yeah, to me, that's the one thing where you truly have to lead by example, is you have to show vulnerability as a leader. And that's for the people that want to become leaders in an organization and become better leaders. I hope that they, and I think they are, because we talk about it, but my hope is that they're paying attention to that. And when you're when it's time to be vulnerable, right? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just don't want to be vulnerable, right, depending on the situation. But most of the time, it really works. Yeah. You're right; it is a force multiplier. Because you and I have had conversations with people that just don't understand vulnerability, and then all of a sudden their language or communication becomes offensive, and you're like, I'm offended by that. And they're like, well, I was trying to be vulnerable. I'm like, well, that's not how you do it. Yeah. We've seen that. And so it is hard to do. Any other thoughts around, as far as, for you at least, your journey from becoming a doer to a leader, right? And not only becoming a leader, but now the head of the organization. I mean, when you started, with Brian and I, it was, you were everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You did everything, every process. It was just you. So,
yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot to it, and the other thing I think is a leader versus a doer. A leader, back to that vulnerability, you've got to be willing to fail. You got to be willing to let others fail. Make a mistake, just don't make it twice, and encourage that. And that's tough because entrepreneurs are built. Winning is everything. Mm-hmm. Failure is hard for entrepreneurs. It's hard to accept. It's hard to face. But that's, again, back to vulnerability. We all know we've read about the fraudulent CEO, right? The mystical fraudulent CEO. But, what does it take for a leader to, myself, for example, to sit down with the leadership team and say, I don't have the answer. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Those are conversations as a leader. Again, once you start having them, what's going to happen is they're going to return that favor. They're going to step up. They're going to fill those gaps. Mm-hmm. And, I've been preaching lately is our leadership team is so strong. They don't need me anymore to make decisions. If they tax the collective intelligence around that room and they're vulnerable and they ask questions and get perspective, there's really no need for me to be in there most of the leadership meetings, because I have tremendous confidence in their ability and knowledge. So, but it is a journey that never ends.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen the team, especially the security side, the team of that you primarily oversee and work with, and I've seen just huge leaps and bounds. But I also see the struggles day to day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a journey, and it takes practice.
Yeah.
And practice and practice. And something I learned from you, and I really appreciate that you've taught me, is because when we started the business, again, all entrepreneurs will say it is, failure's not an option. And that's what I really have learned from you, just because, not only just saying it, but watching you, is no, failure is an option. You have to fail.
Yeah, it's part of it, yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, you're not going to learn. But it's true. If you're trying and you're caring and you're curious, failure isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I just say, well, don't make it a critical failure.
Let people fail, keep them safe, let them fail. But if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. Yeah. You're not pushing yourself to the limits. You're not stepping outside of your box if you're not failing. So, and even experience. People often ask, how do you know this? How do you know that? What's your experience here? It's like, well, I didn't know until I tried it and screwed it up. And I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again until I got it right. Whether that's selling, operations, service. If we made no mistakes in business, we wouldn't be sitting here. No. Because the amount of money we lost just making mistakes is insurmountable. Yeah. But all worth it in the long run. And I think that's contributed to the culture we've created. We have an extremely high employee retention rate, extremely high client retention rate, and it's because of that practice of failing and getting back up and making it better. And you've seen this experiences firsthand. I think the best feedback we get from our clients is, the reason I work with Prime is because when something goes wrong, you guys fix it, and that is priceless. Yeah. But you can't get better if you don't fall down.
No, that's true. And it's just not you and I fixing the problem, right. It's our team fixing
Absolutely.
it. And that's the thing that they need to see, right? They need to see how, if we've done our job right and we've led them right, they see how we solve problems.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they say, what would Steve do? What would Jamie do? What would he say in this moment? And then it just becomes natural where they don't even think about what would Steve or Jamie do.
Right.
It's just, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is the culture. This is how we handle it. You mentioned the fraudulent CEO, but so many entrepreneurs I see, they just like me, same place. They start a business. It's either a great idea or it's an industry, something they're passionate about, and they want to do this and start it, and they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so, but they label themselves the CEO, president CEO of the company, and unfortunately, they're just not good leaders yet, and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
So that's the great thing about people like us have been through it now. So we're resources, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And talk to people all the time, I'm sure, to coach other CEOs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, I think, getting back to, when you initially start a company, it's like I said, survival mode, but the one thing you can't do, at least is what I believe, is you can't stop growing. As a person, I'm not talking about growing revenue or anything business-wise, but I think if you're going to grow your business significantly, you as an individual have to grow. You have to outgrow your business personally, and that means getting a coach, getting mentors, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, just to push those limits. And we wouldn't be here without the coaches we've had over the years, and we still coach. You and I still coach, so the learning never ends. But as soon as I stop growing personally is when it's time to take the boots off. But I don't plan on doing that anytime soon. But that personal growth piece is, some people get so far in the weeds of the business, they forget to grow personally. And I think that's a key attribute to look for somebody in a leader. It's just critically important. So
sure. No, I get it. I think For me, the leadership part is actually the part I enjoy the most in the business.
Yeah. Now, yes.
Yeah. Now, when I didn't know what I was doing, no.
It's just frustrating.
Yeah, it was frustrating. But no, you and I have grown together as leaders, and it's been great to grow with you in that way. So
Same. Yeah.
awesome. If you're ready to get started but don't know how, we've got you covered with a simple one-page worksheet that will help you set the foundation for your business by defining your mission, vision, and core values for your company to set your goals for the next 3 to 5 years. This worksheet is free. Click on the link to download it in the show notes.